All right. I'm Greg Sachs from RISO, and this is 3 Questions with Chris Haran from MRED. Welcome. Question number 1. Your LinkedIn profile says, technology should be invisible or beautiful. I think that speaks well to your role as the chair of the RISO cross-platform Interoperability work group, where we work hard to do exactly that, to make each tech quietly do its thing in an elegant way. In recent years, we've tackled transaction management as an area of real estate that could use more standards. Why is that?
So we chose transaction management because at MRED we had strategically talked with some of our brokerages about the idea that they needed to use a transaction management platform of some kind. We weren't even saying you had to use this one or that one. It was just that it's time to move more into the digital world, to have a little bit more security, a little bit more efficiency, and to really increase the amount of transaction management adoption in our marketplace. And when we said that, what we then heard back was, well, that would be great, except I'm using this platform, they're using that platform, and we can't talk to each other. So I still have to email contracts around. So I can't do the transaction management the way I want to unless we're all in the same system. And obviously, it's hard to make everyone use the same system. And at an MLS level, we didn't want to choose who was going to be that GM platform. So the next step then was interoperability. And how do we facilitate that conversation between those multiple vendors in the space? And obviously, RISO is a great platform for that. Everyone comes here understanding that we're, I like to use the word coopetition a lot in interoperability. We're obviously competing, but we're cooperating at the same time on behalf of our shared customers. And that was really the story that we brought to the transaction management vendors and everyone else in that space, in that ecosystem, and how interoperability got kicked off on that use case.
That's good. At this recording, the transaction management fields have been moved over to Data Dictionary for further scrutiny.
That is correct. Yeah, we're on our second version of it, and we're really excited about the shape that's starting to take place with transaction management and the resources we put together. And it's not just part of what interoperability does outside of just creating new resources, like for transaction management, is adding to existing resources. So as an example, we've added things to the contacts section because that's a really heavily used field within transaction management. It's obviously a resource that already exists at RISO, and this is a good way to get adoption of that resource and also give something back of value to the transaction management platforms.
This is a good segue into my second question. You're the chair of the Data Dictionary's showing subgroup, which has involved a series of gatherings of subject matter experts in the showing space. Can you talk about the directive and the process of that group?
So the directive of that group was very, very simple in that we had gone from an environment where there was really just one major player to all of a sudden a lot of new entrants came into the space. The issue is that showings are such a critical part of an agent's day-to-day life that the network effect built up from everyone using the same system was something that nobody at an MLS level wanted to break. But we also want to make sure that we're offering that choice. So if someone wanted to bring in a different partner, they could do that, but again, we needed to have those systems to be able to talk to each other, even more so than on the transaction management side. So from a showings perspective, we needed to come up with a standard of, how do we trade that appointment information? How do we make it so you can have requests go back and forth between these providers? RISO had already had a showing resource and a showing group, but the showing group was very focused on the MLS side of things, MLS pushing into a showing system. And the showing resource was much more about a static appointment that's already done. And we needed to have it be a little bit more real-time, a little bit more interactive than what it was. So that's what this group came together to do, is say, okay, well, we've got all these different people coming into the space, and we want to make sure that we're supporting our subscribers, our shared customers. And so we need to figure out what can we share back and forth. So what's core that needs to be standardized, that can be shared, versus what's going to make you guys different, what's going to be your differentiator to competitors.
Awesome. That makes sense to me. Third question. MRED's leadership squad employs a lean, agile team concept that involves technology, information, product, and revenue. Mm-hmm. Can you explain how that works and how the heck a marketing guy ends up as the CTO for one of the largest MLSs in the country?
Yes. So fascinating conversation there. When I did my interview with Rebecca when I was looking to join MRED, was very upfront with her saying, if you're asking me to sit down and code or develop something, I'm not going to be that guy. I got into technology because on the brokerage side of things, I started in marketing, and at the time we were really heavily into print advertising. And then the recession hit, and obviously everyone was looking to slash budgets and save costs. And the way to do that was to cut a bunch of money out of print, but then you had to find somewhere to put it. And that was where digital advertising started to take off. So I became part of technology just by virtue of the fact that we had to have another advertising vehicle. And really, to me, everything always comes back to sales. Like everything in any business comes back to sales, and technology is a big part of the sales process these days. So that's how I got into technology, and yes, I think have a great skill at understanding what a true technology developer is saying, then be able to translate that back to the business side of things. So I always like to call myself the interpreter of the organization.
Oh, the chief interpreter. So how in that Agile system?
Yep.
How do you work with your colleagues then?
So MRED is definitely very lean. You know, we're 30 people for 50,000 subscribers. And you know, one of the top MLSs in the country by size, but we do make sure that we have a lot of leverage with different development firms or outsource companies. But from an Agile perspective, the reason why that works so well for us is because we are very process driven. So even with RESO as a good example, like all of the meetings that I run for our different work groups, the agendas that I create and the processes that I follow there are MRED processes that I just use with the work group. So my agenda formats all come from how we do it internally.
And that's why they're so screwed up.
But you know, when you're running a lot of projects like we are, and you have the people that we do, the resources we do, they're a great team at MRED. But you have to have great processes to keep you in line so nothing falls through the cracks. So
excellent.
And that's where Agile really helps you is you can do a week-long iteration, and if something's not working, dump it and move on to the next thing. So
got it. That's kind of 3.5 questions, sorry. Broke my own format. But we're done here, Chris. So this is Greg and Chris in front of a Viking ship of moss. Thank you very much.